47 seconds. That's how long it took Preston Caldwell to destroy 18 years of my career. I hadn't even sat down in the conference room when he snapped his fingers at HR. The termination papers were already signed and dated from the night before. My badge went dark while he was still talking about some urgent directive I supposedly ignored at 2:04 this morning. Look, I've been in corporate cybersecurity for nearly 2 decades. Before that, I spent 6 years in the Navy keeping nuclear systems running on submarines where a single mistake could kill everyone aboard. You don't ignore urgent directives. You just don't. But there I was, watching my access get revoked in real time, while 23 colleagues stared at their phones like I'd suddenly become radioactive. My name is Tyler Brennan, and until this morning, I was Chief Infrastructure Security Officer at Danner Industries. 48 years old, divorced father of 2, and the guy who kept hackers out of systems that moved $3 billion across 12 time zones every single day. My job was making sure Tokyo could come online while London was shutting down without the whole network collapsing like a house of cards. Not glamorous work, but it mattered. When I did my job right, 21,000 employees got their paychecks on time, their health insurance worked, and their retirement funds stayed protected from the criminals trying to break in every hour of every day. Preston Caldwell never understood that. At 36, he was everything modern companies think they want in leadership. Harvard MBA, Stanford computer science degree, and the kind of polish that impresses boards of directors. He spoke fluent corporate buzzword and could throw around terms like digital transformation and agile infrastructure while wearing suits that cost more than most people's monthly salary. The problem was, underneath all that education and presentation skill, Preston was fundamentally insecure about one thing. He knew I understood the actual systems better than he ever would. And in a company built on technology, that made me a threat to his authority. I should have seen this coming. 6 months ago, Preston pitched his infrastructure modernization initiative to the board. 40 slides of colorful charts promising 30% cost savings through automation and cloud migration. When they asked me to review his timeline, I had to be the bad guy. This moves too fast, I told the room full of executives who wanted to hear about savings, not problems. You're talking about migrating systems that took 15 years to build and secure. Rush this and we'll have vulnerabilities we can't even see coming. Preston's smile never wavered, but his eyes went cold. Tyler, I appreciate your caution, but sometimes you have to break a few eggs to make an omelet. The business world moves fast these days. That's when I knew he was planning to break me. The thing about Preston was he was smart enough to be dangerous. He understood code, knew enough about network architecture to sound credible in meetings, and had the political skills to make his ideas sound inevitable. What he lacked was the experience to know why certain procedures existed in the first place. Take that email at 2:04 a.m. On the surface, it looked like an emergency directive about critical security protocol adjustments that required immediate implementation. The kind of thing that, if you squinted and didn't think too hard, might seem urgent enough to justify waking up your security chief. But when I read it the next morning, after getting fired for not responding, the directive made no technical sense. It was asking me to disable backup authentication systems during peak trading hours in Asia, override fraud detection protocols, and push through configuration changes that would have created massive security holes. The kind of request that violated every principle of safe system management. It was designed to look urgent to executives while being completely impossible to implement safely. A trap disguised as a test of responsiveness. But I was asleep. For the first time in months, I'd actually gotten 7 hours of rest instead of monitoring network alerts all night. My phone sat on the nightstand, screen dark, while I dreamed of taking my dad fishing like we used to when I was a kid. That's what Preston used to justify erasing me from the company I'd helped build. The humiliation hit me in waves. First was the shock of the termination itself, 47 seconds to destroy nearly 2 decades of service. Then came the realization that my colleagues, people I'd mentored and covered for and worked alongside through countless late nights, couldn't even look me in the eye. Carl Martinez, a regional director I'd known for 12 years, managed a mumbled, "Sorry, Tyler," as I walked past his office. Lisa Chen, a security analyst I'd trained from day one, stared at her computer screen like it contained the secrets of the universe. The silence was deafening. Walking out of that building with my personal items in a cardboard box, I felt hollowed out. Not angry yet, that would come later, just empty. Like someone had deleted my purpose along with my email account. The security guard who'd known me for 8 years couldn't even look me in the eye when he took my badge. "Just following orders, Tyler," he mumbled. I sat in my car for 10 minutes, staring at that building where I'd spent more waking hours than in my own home. Through the glass windows, I could see people moving around, getting back to their normal Tuesday morning routines like nothing had happened. Like 18 years of expertise had just vanished without leaving a ripple. My phone buzzed. Text message from my 19-year-old son, Jake, at college. Dad, weird question, but the bursar's office called about my spring semester payment. The automatic transfer failed. Everything okay? $22,000 I no longer had access to. My stomach dropped as the full implications hit me. This wasn't just about my pride or my career. This was about my kids' future, about promises I'd made, about responsibilities that didn't care whether Preston Caldwell thought I was expendable. I started the engine and drove toward the coffee shop on 5th Street. I needed time to think, time to figure out how to tell my kids that their stable, boring dad had just become unemployed at 48 years old. What I didn't know yet was that Preston's trap was about to become his biggest mistake. The coffee shop on 5th Street was nearly empty at 9:30 a.m. on a Tuesday. I chose a corner table where I could sit with my back to the wall, old Navy habit, and opened my laptop. My personal monitoring tools were still running, systems I'd built over the years to keep an eye on network health from outside the corporate firewall. What I saw made my blood run cold. Everything was failing. The global security protocols I'd maintained for 18 years were collapsing in real time like dominoes falling in slow motion. Authentication servers in Berlin were timing out every 30 seconds. The firewall configurations protecting our Asian operations were throwing critical errors. Payment processing systems were dropping connections faster than they could establish them. Without proper oversight, the whole network was eating itself alive. This was exactly what I'd warned them about for years. Remove the human expertise. Automate everything. Move fast and break things, and eventually you break everything that matters. I pulled up the employee portal first. Red alerts everywhere. Healthcare enrollment systems were corrupted. People couldn't access their benefits, couldn't submit medical claims, couldn't even verify their employment status. I thought about Maria Rodriguez in accounting, whose husband was diabetic and needed his insulin prescription filled today. About Tom Wilson's kid who had surgery scheduled next week. About hundreds of families who woke up this morning thinking their insurance was secure. The payroll system was even worse. Automatic deposits were failing. Direct deposit authorizations were getting scrambled. Some employees were getting double payments while others got nothing. The fraud detection algorithms, designed to catch unusual patterns, were flagging legitimate transactions as suspicious and freezing accounts across the board. My phone started buzzing with texts from people still inside the building. Lisa Chen, Tyler, everything's crashing. What do we do? Carl Martinez, can you log in remotely? We need help. Even guys from other departments who barely knew my name were reaching out. Heard you got fired this morning. Any idea why the system's going crazy? I stared at those messages for a long time. Part of me wanted to help, wanted to dive back in and fix what was breaking. That's what you do when people depend on you. But I couldn't. My access was gone, my authority revoked, my 18 years of institutional knowledge suddenly worthless because Preston Caldwell thought he could manage what he didn't understand. Then I remembered something that made me smile for the first time all day. 6 months ago, during one of Preston's modernization pushes, I'd quietly installed a secondary monitoring system. Call it insurance, call it paranoia, but after 15 years of watching executives make decisions they didn't comprehend, I'd learned to document everything. The system was designed to automatically flag and report any security protocol violations to federal regulators. If someone tried to bypass established procedures, say forcing through an emergency directive without proper authorization, it would capture every detail and forward it straight to the SEC's cybersecurity division. I pulled up the compliance logs with shaking hands. There it was, clear as daylight. A flag triggered at exactly 2:04 a.m., the same timestamp as Preston's impossible email. The system had automatically documented his attempt to override security protocols and sent a complete audit trail to federal investigators. The irony was beautiful. Preston had tried to frame me for ignoring his directive. Instead, my own systems had documented his violation of federal cybersecurity regulations and delivered the evidence directly to prosecutors. But that small victory felt hollow as I watched the damage spreading in real time. Stock trading systems were hiccuping, creating phantom transactions that would take weeks to unravel. Client data was getting corrupted as backup systems failed to sync properly. International wire transfers were timing out. leaving millions of dollars in limbo between banks. By 11 a.m., my phone was ringing constantly. Not just colleagues, but clients, vendors, even competitors who'd heard rumors about what was happening. Tyler, what's going on over there? Is it true they fired you this morning? Can you help us understand why our systems are down? I had to turn off my phone. What was I supposed to tell them? That 18 years of careful system architecture was being destroyed by a man who thought cybersecurity was just another line item in a PowerPoint presentation. My daughter Emma called me on the landline at the coffee shop. Somehow she'd tracked me down, 16 years old and smarter than half the executives I'd worked with. Dad, something's wrong. Mom's trying to get money from the ATM and it's not working. Says there's a problem with your company's systems. That hit me in the gut. My ex-wife Sandra still had our joint savings account linked to Danner's employee credit union. If those systems were down, she couldn't access the money I'd been putting aside for Emma's car, for college prep courses, for all the things a 16-year-old needs. It's complicated, sweetheart, I told her. There are some problems at work right now. It'll get sorted out. Did you get fired, Dad? Kids always know. Yeah, I did. Because you wouldn't compromise your principles. I had to pause. Emma had grown up hearing me talk about doing things right, about not taking shortcuts when people's security was at stake. She'd seen me miss dinners and weekend plans because someone was trying to break into our systems. She understood better than most adults that some things were more important than being convenient. Something like that. Then I'm proud of you. That 17-year-old girl understood what a boardroom full of executives had missed. Integrity isn't negotiable even when it costs you everything. After Emma hung up, I sat staring at my laptop screen as the numbers kept getting worse. Transaction volumes were backing up like traffic behind a massive accident. Error rates were climbing toward critical thresholds. System response times were degrading by the minute. Around noon, the first news alert popped up on my phone. Technical difficulties at Danner Industries affecting client services. By 12:15, the story had evolved. Major systems failure at Fortune 500 company. By 12:30, cybersecurity expert fired hours before $3 billion system collapse. The reporters had connected the dots faster than Preston's damage control team could spin them. And somewhere in that building, Preston was probably discovering that firing the guy who built your security systems on the same morning they catastrophically fail looks suspicious to people whose job is asking inconvenient questions. By 1 p.m., the coffee shop had filled with the lunch crowd, but I barely noticed. My laptop screen showed a company bleeding data from every digital wound. Transaction failures were cascading through the system like a virus, infecting healthy processes and creating new problems faster than anyone could track them. Then my phone rang. Carl Martinez calling from inside the building. Tyler, thank God you picked up. It's complete chaos here. The board called an emergency meeting. They want to know if you can come back, fix this mess. I almost laughed. Carl, 12 hours ago, they walked me out with a cardboard box. Now they want me to save them? Look, I know how this sounds. But people are panicking. Preston's running around blaming everyone except himself. The stock's down 18% and falling. We've got federal investigators calling about SEC filings. This is bigger than just hurt feelings. He was right about one thing. It was bigger than hurt feelings. Through the coffee shop window, I could see the Danner Industries building 8 blocks away. Somewhere in there, 21,000 people were watching their livelihoods disappear because one executive thought experience was expendable. What's Preston telling the board? I asked. Carl's voice dropped. That you sabotaged the system before you left. That this is all retaliation for being fired. The accusation hit me like a physical blow. 18 years of service, of late nights and missed family dinners, of building systems that protected people's jobs and savings, and they thought I'd destroy it all out of spite. Carl, you know me better than that. I do, but Preston's got documentation. Screenshots of error logs with your user ID. Timestamps showing system changes made right before you left. He's building a case that you planted some kind of logic bomb. My mind raced through the implications. Preston wasn't just trying to cover his tracks. He was actively framing me for the disaster he'd caused. And he was smart enough to manufacture evidence that would look convincing to people who didn't understand the technical details. Those logs are fabricated or taken out of context, I said. Any changes with my ID were routine maintenance I did weeks ago. I believe you. But the board's scared, the media's asking questions, and Preston's the only one claiming to have answers. After Carl hung up, I sat staring at my reflection in the laptop screen. This was worse than being fired. This was character assassination, designed to make me unemployable and shift blame for a multi-billion-dollar disaster onto my shoulders. But Preston had made one crucial mistake. He'd underestimated the systems I'd built. I pulled up my secure monitoring dashboard. not the official corporate tools, but my own private setup that tracked system health from outside the network. Every cybersecurity professional worth his salt keeps backdoor access for emergencies. Not for sabotage, but for situations exactly like this. The compliance logs told the real story. Every system change was time-stamped and logged. Preston's 2:04 a.m. directive was there, along with his override of security protocols. The automated SEC filing was there, documenting his violations. But more importantly, the system had captured something else. Preston's subsequent attempts to modify the audit trail. Starting at 9:15 a.m., 30 minutes after my termination, someone with Preston's administrative credentials had tried to delete entries from the security logs. They'd attempted to backdate system changes, alter user access records, and modify the audit trail that would show his unauthorized directive. Every attempt had been automatically blocked and logged. The system I designed was tamper-proof by design, with redundant logging that couldn't be modified without triggering additional alerts. Preston had essentially created a digital record of his own cover-up attempt. I saved everything to an encrypted drive and made 3 backup copies. Whatever happened next, the truth would survive. Around 2 p.m., my phone buzzed with a text from Lisa Chen. Check the news. They're walking Preston out. I pulled up the live news feed on my phone. There he was, Preston Caldwell, no longer the polished executive who'd strutted into the morning meeting 6 hours earlier. His tie was askew, his face pale, and he was flanked by security guards as reporters shouted questions he couldn't answer. The same walk of shame he'd orchestrated for me, but with cameras rolling and the world watching. Justice has a sense of irony sometimes, but watching Preston's downfall didn't fill me with the satisfaction I'd expected. Instead, I felt hollow. 21,000 innocent people were still watching their jobs evaporate. Families were still dealing with frozen bank accounts and disrupted healthcare. A Fortune 500 company was still bleeding money and credibility. Preston's humiliation didn't fix any of that. My phone rang again. This time it was a number I didn't recognize, but the caller ID showed SEC Investigation Division. Mr. Brennan, this is Agent Sarah Torres with the Securities and Exchange Commission. We received an automated compliance filing this morning regarding security protocol violations at your former employer. We'd like to discuss your role in the events leading to today's system failures. My mouth went dry. Am I under investigation? At this time, you're a witness, not a subject. The automated filing indicates you were terminated approximately 6 hours before the security violations occurred. We'd like to understand the timeline and your knowledge of the systems involved. I agreed to meet with them the next morning. As I hung up, I realized something had fundamentally changed. I wasn't just a fired employee anymore. I was a federal witness in what was clearly going to be a major investigation. The coffee shop was emptying out as the afternoon wore on. I ordered another coffee and opened my email for the first time since the morning. Buried among the messages of support from former colleagues and job inquiries from competitors was one that made me sit up straight. The subject line read, Chief Information Security Officer, Defense Contract Opportunity. The sender was Sandra Walsh, CEO of Meridian Defense Systems, a government contractor specializing in critical infrastructure protection. I'd heard of the company. They handled cybersecurity for power grids, communication networks, and other systems that kept civilization running. I clicked open the email. The salary figure made my eyes widen. 40% more than Danner had been paying me, plus equity, plus a signing bonus that would cover Jake's entire college tuition with money left over for Emma's future. But more than the money, the job description felt like vindication. They wanted someone with deep experience in protecting critical systems. Someone who understood that security wasn't just technology, but responsibility. Someone whose 18 years of expertise was viewed as an asset, not an obstacle. The meeting with Sandra Walsh at Meridian Defense Systems happened 3 days later in a conference room that overlooked the Potomac River. She was a former Navy captain herself, mid-50s, with the kind of direct manner that told you she'd commanded ships and made life-or-death decisions. No corporate buzzwords, no MBA doublespeak, just straight talk about protecting systems that actually mattered. Tyler, I've been following your work at Danner for years, she said, sliding a folder across the table. Your reputation in the cybersecurity community is solid. When I heard what happened, I wasn't surprised. I was just surprised it took Preston Caldwell this long to hang himself. The job offer was everything the email had promised and more. Chief Information Security Officer, reporting directly to her, with full authority over a team of 52 specialists. The work involved protecting critical infrastructure, power grids, communication networks, transportation systems. The kind of systems where failure meant blackouts, not just quarterly losses. We need someone who understands that security isn't a technology problem, Sandra said. It's a responsibility problem. Someone who gets that every system we protect has real people depending on it to work. I signed the contract that afternoon. The SEC investigation wrapped up 6 weeks later. Agent Torres called to give me the results personally. Preston faced federal charges for securities violations, obstruction of justice, and computer fraud. The evidence from my automated compliance system had provided prosecutors with a complete timeline of his violations and subsequent cover-up attempts. Your system saved us months of investigation, Torres told me. We had everything documented in real time, time-stamped and legally admissible. It's rare to see such thorough evidence in corporate fraud cases. Preston plea bargained his way out of prison time, but his career was finished. SEC sanctions meant he couldn't serve as an officer of any public company. The Harvard MBA that had opened so many doors became worthless overnight. Last I heard, he was selling insurance in Phoenix, probably telling clients about his educational credentials while avoiding mention of the federal sanctions. As for Danner Industries, the company never recovered. The security failures had cascaded into regulatory violations, client lawsuits, and a federal investigation that consumed what was left of their resources. Insurance companies refused to pay out claims, arguing that the breaches resulted from gross negligence. Major clients terminated their contracts and moved to competitors. 9 months after my termination, Danner filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy. 21,000 people lost their jobs, pension funds evaporated, and a Fortune 500 company became a cautionary tale about what happens when you prioritize presentations over expertise. I felt hollow watching the news coverage. These weren't abstract numbers. They were people I'd worked with, protected, tried to keep safe. Maria Rodriguez in accounting. Tom Wilson from operations. Lisa Chen, who'd been brave enough to text me during the crisis. Good people who deserved better than being collateral damage in Preston's power play. But there was some justice in the aftermath. Several class action lawsuits were filed against the company's leadership, and many of the displaced employees found positions with competitors who valued their experience. Lisa Chen joined my team at Meridian, where her talents were finally recognized with appropriate compensation and responsibility. 3 months into my new job, I was reviewing security protocols for the Eastern Seaboard power grid when my assistant knocked on my door. "Tyler, there's someone here to see you." Says it's personal. It was my dad, holding a coffee and wearing the proud smile I remembered from my high school graduation. At 71, he still carried himself like the power plant supervisor he'd been for 3 decades. "Thought I'd stop by and see where my son works now," he said, looking around the secure facility with approval. "Heard you're protecting the lights from going out." We walked through the operations center, where analysts monitored threats to critical infrastructure in real time. Dad understood immediately what we were doing here, keeping essential systems running so people could live their lives without thinking about the complexity underneath. "Your mom would be proud," he said quietly. "She always said you'd find work that mattered." That evening, I drove to Emma's soccer game for the first time in 2 years. She scored the winning goal and ran straight to the sidelines afterward, grass stains on her uniform and pure joy on her face. "Dad, you made it!" she said, hugging me without caring about the sweat. "Wouldn't miss it," I told her, and meant it. Jake called that weekend from college. His grades were strong, his future secure, and for the first time in months, I could answer his questions about money without feeling my stomach clench. The signing bonus from Meridian had covered his remaining tuition. Emma's college fund was growing again, and we were planning that fishing trip with Grandpa we'd been postponing for years. "Dad, I've been thinking about what happened at your old job," Jake said. "About you getting fired for doing the right thing." "What about it? It makes me proud to be your son. I want to be the kind of person who doesn't compromise when it matters. My father had taught me that integrity wasn't negotiable. I'd pass that lesson to my kids, sometimes at great personal cost. But sitting in my new office, leading a team that protected systems millions of people depended on, I realized the cost had been worth paying. The lesson in all this isn't complicated. Experience matters. Expertise has value. And when someone tries to replace 18 years of knowledge with a PowerPoint presentation, the system will eventually remind them why experience exists in the first place. Sometimes it takes 47 seconds to destroy a career. Sometimes it takes 18 years to build the systems that ensure the truth survives long enough to matter. In the end, competence outlasts politics and integrity finds its own reward. If you're watching this from your own corporate cubicle, wondering whether your expertise is valued or if you're just another expense waiting to be optimized away, remember this: document everything. Build systems that outlast office politics. And never compromise your principles for people who don't understand their value. The system remembers everything, even when the people running it choose to forget.